The way that I stay optimistic is I received a message the other day. We were able to early intervene with a member, and she is on the road and engaged to get her cancer for free. And she brought us and told us a story about how the financial burden it was when her father went through cancer, and just what it means to these people.
At scale, right? It's easy to be pessimistic because it's like, how do we fix $4.5 trillion?
Sure.
But what you just described is an individual circumstance with one person whose life was likely transformed from the arrangement that you provided. Thanks for tuning in to the Self-Funded with Spencer podcast. Let's go make healthcare better together. All right, cool. I'm here with Bobby Stuart, benefits consultant for Hotchkiss Insurance. How's it going, man?
It's great. Happy to be here.
Dude, I'm excited to sit and chat with you, especially with your smart-ass socks that you have on. That was the first thing I noticed when you sat down, man. I love those socks. I go the no-show most of the time. But Bobby, let's talk about your story first. I love the role of the benefits consultant. Obviously, I'm biased to Hotchkiss. I love what you guys are doing. But I'd like to hear how you got into the industry, what made you want to do this, and sort of your journey through healthcare. So give us some of your background.
Absolutely. I've been in the health insurance space for about 5 years. Had an opportunity to change careers, had some family in the industry, and it kind of seemed like a natural fit. My personality tends to lean to how can I help people? What can I do to impact some change and give back to people? And what I've learned is that there's so many things to do in the self-funded space. So over the last 5 years, cutting my teeth with the TPA, learning and understanding self-funded, you talk to employers and it's, well, we were self-funded for a long time, but it just doesn't make sense now.
Yeah.
Well, this isn't your mom and dad's self-funding solutions anymore. There's so many things that you can do to impact change that I have a passion for it.
Okay.
I want to get involved with those CFOs, CEOs, HR directors, and help them take care of their people, right? That's what drives their business forward. And that's what I like to get passionate about.
Is this something I suspect you probably didn't come out of school thinking you were going to do, or did you, man?
I had no idea I was going to end up in the insurance industry. It's kind of, you sit around in college, like you just joke about being in the insurance industry.
It's almost like it's a bad word though, right?
Sure.
Nobody wants to be in insurance.
I'm an insurance guy. Yeah. I'm a consultant or whatever it is. It's kind of, but the impact and the power that it has to help people financially, in the things that we can do and the creativity that we can create, is I have such a passion for, and it's just really enjoyable to get out and sit shoulder to shoulder with employees, with employers, and help them find a solution.
Well, yeah, I was kind of shaking my head. My opinion is obviously completely transformed. Had a similar opinion about insurance, and then really finding the world of self-insurance is when everything clicked, and I was like, oh, that's what I want to do. Yeah. That has an impact, and there's financial component. It's creative. There's almost an art element to the strategy. At the end of the day, what you're doing, if set up correctly, is going to have a long-term positive impact on a business, and the employees is ultimately what we're talking about here. Where'd you go to school? So
I went to Texas Tech.
You're from Lubbock, right?
I am.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Are you still living in Lubbock?
Still live in Lubbock.
Very cool, man. And so you got into the business by happenstance or a family member, or how did you end up joining into healthcare?
Father-in-law owned a TPA, sold a TPA to a larger organization. And about 18 months after, he said, man, this transaction has gone exactly the way they told me it would go. I think this would be a good fit for you.
Okay.
I think that you would really enjoy this if you'll come over, right? Took a bit of a leap of faith, leaving a good organization that I really enjoyed the people, the culture, and so just finding that opportunity to create change, I've really enjoyed it. So that's kind of where I wanted to go.
You kind of went off the deep end of self-funding right away, though, right? You were doing reference-based pricing and all sorts of cool stuff. So talk to me about the learning curve, just immediately in your career going that far in innovation.
Yeah, the very, very first day, sat down with the director of sales development, and he's like, hey, I'm going to put you through self-funding 101. Here's a packet. Here's a program. Once you go get your certification in this, you got to go get your license. And you're sitting in these classes, and it's just overwhelming.
Yeah.
It's overwhelming, just the information and how complex it can be at the very beginning. But as you start to pull it back and you start to learn it and boil it down, they're simple solutions. Mm-hmm. And so if you don't get overwhelmed by it, it's simple.
But I think it's like anything, man. There's always going to be a barrier to entry in any industry because you have to learn the language that they use.
Sure.
There's lots of jargon, acronyms, et cetera, we throw around. But once you get over the hump and you start, oh, that means that. And that's how that thing connects to that. And the puzzle starts to come together and you see the picture of what you're doing. And then you go, I start to get it now. And so that could be a 3-month, 6-month, 12-month learning curve, depending on the individual. But the important thing is it's not unique to self-insurance that it takes a little while to understand it. I think most people just don't take the time necessary to do so. So it seems foreign still.
Yes, absolutely. Sure does.
ClaimDoc is a medical claim auditing and member advocacy company. We provide fiduciary services to employer-sponsored benefit plans and allowing them to create an environment where we ensure that the benefit plans are being charged on a fair and reasonable basis.
My business is basically people, and it become a real simple transition. We thought it was going to be far more complex. I've saved, we'll say, hundreds of thousands of dollars. I could not say enough about ClaimDoc.
And so you were working at a TPA at the time, doing reference-based pricing. What are some of the other things? I think a stop loss was a piece of what you were doing as well, right?
Yeah. So the full grasp, I started in, hey, just start going and calling on brokers, right? Tell the story. Let's sell some business. Let's work on that aspect. So went out. I had West Texas, Dallas, Oklahoma, New Mexico, dabbled a little bit in Arizona, calling on some brokers and consultants. And I learned quickly that if I was going to provide for my family of 4, my 2 little boys, my wife, I was going to have to live on an airplane, going to Dallas, going to Phoenix, going to Oklahoma City. And that's not really what I wanted to do, was here and here and here and all over. And so having the opportunity to join Hotchkiss narrowed my focus. I can create a lot of impact and a lot of change in Lubbock, Texas, in West Texas. We've got clients that span all across the state, but not only just calling on consultants and developing health plans, I led the marketing for stop loss and underwriting, and being able to learn the intricacies of, hey, what does this oncology solution do, or what does this PBM solution do to reduce the overall claims cost and reduce the overall spend. It helped my trajectory and my learning curve, as you mentioned earlier. It really condensed it down because they needed someone that could go tell a story to compete with the market, and I was able to go articulate what we do and how we do what we do and how it impacts the overall cost of the claim, what we're doing to provide better benefits to employees and employers.
I'm glad you mentioned underwriting too, because I think that's where I was not an underwriter myself, but especially when I got into the world of selling stop loss insurance, I had to learn to speak with my underwriters, because ultimately half of the sale was the internal positioning of it. And then working collaboratively with an underwriter to say, hey, we need to either get here on pricing, or did we evaluate this particular claim solution? If we put this all together with a story, do these numbers make sense?
Sure.
And can we get there? And then your job, of course, is then to use that externally to say, hey, we've got here, can we sell this?
Correct.
But I learned really quickly, if I could speak their language, understand how an underwriter looks at risk versus a sales guy who just wants to make a sale, and you have to be very collaborative with them internally to do that. I go, okay, that's going to help me outside go tell the story better as well. So I want to ask you if having an underwriter's eye has helped you be successful in selling kind of a complex solution like self-funding.
Absolutely, because you're able to take a set of claims and you can identify pretty quickly whether it's a large case oncology. If you can get some of the clinical notes, you can understand where that risk is and where they are in their plan of care. What does that look like for projecting care, right? What does that look like for an underwriter? Is that a laser? Is that, is there a potential where that can fall off, where you find a different solution? You can, understanding how an underwriter thinks and how they manage risk and how they evaluate risk allows you kind of quickly to sit at the table and say, well, we can do this and this and this and this, and we can create a solution that actually creates impact and change for the long term.
Well, and it's not just the savings and the claims. It's the, if you think about just the very nature of getting a group from fully insured to self-funded, you've got to make it make sense financially first. But then that's the starting point to then go do all the things that they want to do in their health plan later. And so you have to be good at helping them make that particular transition so that then they can be successful over the long haul. And if we get stuck at that point, then they're still stuck in the same position they were before, going, I'm not sure what to do about these issues we have. And so I think it's incumbent upon both of us to be able to be really good at taking a complex idea and making it as simple as possible for them to understand.
Yep.
When did you get to the point where you wanted to make a transition away from selling into consultants and then be a consultant yourself?
I joined Hotchkiss 8 months ago in the middle of 2024. And I think I'd identified earlier in the year that I wanted to transition over to the consultant side, right? You get a seat at the table with the decision makers. You get to talk directly with the HR. So you cut out maybe the story that's not being told the way that you think it should be told. And so the ability to go straight to the employer and tell the story. So you're not just a number on a spreadsheet or, man, that good solutions, but that's work. And I don't know that I really want to do that level of work. So the story's not articulated downstream. I wanted to join Hotchkiss because Riley was a client of mine at the TPA. Well, he transitioned over and sold to Hotchkiss, and through that merger and acquisition, and I knew who Chris Hamilton was, and I had followed Chris Hamilton, and I really, really liked the stories that they were telling to employers.
Yeah.
It met me where I was in the stories that I would like to go tell and the solutions that I would like to go, and the solutions I wanted to bring to employers. So it was really kind of a natural fit to reach out and to look at joining Hotchkiss
Well, and I think
Insurance.
the training and the education, the background you had was tailor-made to do what Hotchkiss does, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, I would say they lucky to sort of land there because I know the level of lift it would require to bring somebody that didn't have your background up to speed to then go and articulate that to business owners. And I'm sure your learning curve was way shorter around that stuff. And then you could focus on learning to sell and prospect for benefits. Having spent years working alongside healthcare leaders, brokers, and employers, I know how overwhelming healthcare can feel for our customers. We've all been there. Those renewal conversations that never seem to get easier. Rising pharmacy costs and medical costs, and no real transparency into where healthcare dollars are going. That's why I'm excited about Nomi Health. They're not just fixing the old system. They've rebuilt self-funded benefits from the ground up. With Nomi's network, you can offer something truly different. No copays, no deductibles, zero out-of-pocket costs when members see a provider. It's the kind of benefit that makes everyone ask, why hasn't healthcare always worked this way? Ready to bring your clients something different? Visit nomihealth.com and see how Nomi is rebuilding healthcare, one employer and one community at a time.
Absolutely.
So I do want to ask you the difference in the sales process now for you, because I know it is different. So what have you learned in the last 8 months about how to sell to employers?
The sales process, I don't think is wholly that different. It's really engaging the consultant and educating them on the TPA side how our solutions differentiate themselves in the market, right? So the story to CFOs and HR directors is we're not the same. Right, we're not the same as the other who you may have today. This is our concept. This is kind of our philosophy, and it may not fit for you, but there are options and solutions out there that will fit.
Yeah.
Right. So, I would say that it's similar. Just the process of working through maybe a different quoting strategy. Is a little bit different.
Yeah, and I don't know if there's more investigation involved in like the discovery process, right? I mean, I've never been a consultant. I have worked at an agency, and I was more of an analyst role, and so I did have a seat at the table in renewal conversations, prospect conversations, but I obviously wasn't leading the sales process. I was presenting kind of financials and numbers, and I have a healthy respect for the difficulty of what you guys do, right?
Sure.
Because essentially, like my job, even still at Pareto, is to work with a narrow subset of consultants and build deep relationships with with those that we want to work with, but it's through that distribution channel. So that buyer, that relationship, I understand well after a decade. For me, I look at what you guys do externally, going and selling to essentially an infinite market, right, of potential business owners. I view that as a different sale and maybe a difficulty that I wouldn't be able to cross the chasm of doing. And so I guess all that's to say is I have a level of respect for what you do. But I think with your skill set, it's obvious that you can be successful in it, especially under the tutelage of a Riley and a Chris Hamilton as well. And so early on, I know it's still 8 months in, but have you had kind of some initial like the success with these clients, been able to do some cool things that you want to do with them?
Oh, absolutely. Having the back of the U.S. Dealer Risk Strategies has allowed us to really kind of roll some momentum and have some early wins and implement some of those solutions and strategies for clients. We've taken over fully insured and taken them over into the self-funding. We've taken over other self-funded groups that weren't structured properly, or they didn't actually understand. You sit down at the table and like, well, what's your spec level? I don't know. Are you structured in this environment? Do you have aggregate accommodation? Do you have some of the spec advantage? Like, how is your plan built? I'm like, we don't really know. And then you kind of you pull back the curtain. And you're like, well, we need to make these changes, these changes, these changes. And it's stable. It stabilizes. You go from a frustrated CFO or president to, okay, I understand now the trajectory of where this can go in 3 or 4 or 5 years.
Pareto Health is the largest benefits captive in the United States. With nearly 3,000 captive members, $1.3 billion of stop-loss premium in force, and almost 1 million covered lives, no other benefits captive comes close to Pareto Health's scale. But it's not just about the numbers. Pareto Health is a mission-driven organization, and that mission has 2 distinct parts. Number 1, to make self-insurance simple and more accessible for small to mid-sized employers. And number 2, to arm them with the most powerful cost management tools on the market. So if you're an employer frustrated with your healthcare outcomes, or you're a benefits consultant looking for an alternative to the status quo, it's time to consider Pareto Health. Pareto Health, where employers come to do self-insurance right, to do it easily, and to do it at scale.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of fun too. I mean, the dynamics of what you guys have to uncover is really varied, right? So you mentioned a fully insured takeover, a self-funded plan that's set up maybe improperly or suboptimally, if I want to use that term. And you get to tinker, right? You get to bring to the knowledge that you have to the table. And I think the credibility of what you guys do ensures that there's a certain element of trust that can come from that. But I'm so surprised when you tell a story of an employer that is self-funded, they don't even know what their spec level is. They don't even know what their plan design looks like or who their TPA. You're going, how do you not know this stuff? And you're doing what you're doing. And so I don't know if that's just maybe the previous agent wasn't quite on top of it or what. Doesn't matter, because ultimately you guys get to come in and look like the good guys and solve some serious problems for them.
Yeah, and I think the process and the approach that Hotchkiss does like to take, and Riley and I like to take, is we want to sit down with you square one. We want to have a conversation and tell you how we do what we do, but there's a lot of whiteboarding. There's a lot of education, right? We want to meet you where you are and then take you down that road. And so we don't try and push anything on anyone, right? So we will always go down the road with you on your behalf and work to find the solution, right? Fully insured may be where you need to be right now, but we're always working to finding the next solution, to have an exit strategy, to have a way to project down the road that just makes sense.
Yeah. And I know you come from an innovative TPA and doing reference-based pricing, as you mentioned. Obviously, you're working at an innovative consulting firm. So what are some of the cool things that you guys are seeing in the marketplace that are having impact today, like either claims or risk structure, things like that?
I think our ability to impact early intervention with potential high claimants. We can engage them early enough in the process and educate them, hey, if you'll go to this high quality, fairly priced facility, you can have your oncology paid for free, right? That speaks volumes to someone. Why be burdened by the financial impact of having cancer and go fight cancer? Let's take that off your plate.
Yeah.
Go worry about fighting cancer and winning that battle and supporting your family and doing the things that you need to do, don't worry about the cost.
Yep.
We'll take care of that.
Yeah, is that accomplished through a narrower network? Is that accomplished through a solution on the oncology side? Tell me more about that.
It's direct contracts with high quality facilities. Okay. So if a member has cancer or is diagnosed and it fits the criteria, right? There are some cancer treatments that don't qualify. So if someone qualifies and they use our direct contracts and they use our networks, we'll take care of those, those claims, because we're saving $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 per episode of care. And it's just meaningful impact that creates longevity. So if the plan's going to win and the employer's going to win, why would we not share in the win with the employees?
Yeah, I mean, that's at the end of the day, what we're trying to do is align incentives across all stakeholders: employees, employers, consultant, vendor partners, physicians. Like, we can't forget what they do is so valuable to the equation. They need a seat at the table, but the incentives have to have harmony, right? And so what you're really describing is a harmonious situation where everybody benefits from a better setup inside the plan. But I would be remiss if we didn't touch on pharmacy, because if you're like me, every time I wake up, I feel like I uncover something new and egregious in the world of pharmacy. So talk to me about like kind of the importance of the PBM in this equation for you guys as well.
Yeah, absolutely. We want to bring transparency across, and I think that it could potentially be an overutilized word. But finding the most transparent PBM, right? Whether it's a fixed cost or a per fill cost, so you know exactly what the price point is whenever you pay for that. There's just going back to what we're doing for oncology, there's the ability for members to get high cost drugs for free. If you'll utilize these avenues, we can unburden you from a $5,000 a month RX claim or an RX spend. And so driving down the utilization cost or the cost to access that drug, we win. The plan wins. Why would we not share in that savings as well? And so finding a transparent PBM who's open about how they make money is really, really key. And I think in the overall building of the healthcare ecosystem and understanding plan risk and liability.
Yeah. Hey, do you find it difficult staying optimistic sometimes? I mean, I don't. I'm very hopeful for our industry, but it's very easy to get frustrated at some of the things you uncover as well. So how do you maintain sort of like laser focus on staying optimistic to solve problems rather than let it drag you down too much?
I think I would use this example. The way that I stay optimistic is we get feedback from our clients. And I received a message the other day that we were able to early intervene with a member, and she is on the road and engaged to get her cancer for free. And she brought us and told us a story about how cancer has followed her family and the financial burden it was when her father went through cancer, and just what it means to these people. And so telling our story and getting with employers and hey, here's what we can do for your people. Here's how we help you drive value to your people, which drive your business forward. Getting them to engage, I think, and think differently about healthcare is sometimes the most challenging portion of the piece. But when you can have an opportunity to sit down with them and explain the whys and the way that we do what we do, I don't think there's a reason to ever not be optimistic about where healthcare
and I
can
mean,
go.
it's difficult because it's at scale, right? It's easy to be pessimistic because it's like, how do we fix $4.5 trillion?
Sure.
But what you just described is an individual circumstance with one person whose life was likely transformed from the arrangement that you provided. It's not just the monetary value and savings to her in the plan. It's the enhancement of the quality of life that comes along with that, and hopefully for a long period afterwards. And I think sometimes we forget, being in this world, that ultimately every decision that we make or every option we provide has a downstream impact on an American and a human being. And that's such an important message to continue to think about every single day.
Chronic health issues, surprise out-of-network medical bills, inflated medical and prescription drug prices. These issues cost self-insured employers hundreds of millions of dollars every year. Add to this the rising cost of care and potential for waste across the life of a claim, and it's clear that self-insured employers need innovative solutions that lower their health plan spend. At Valence, we've done just that, developed innovation that shifts the current paradigm. A complete and integrated ecosystem solution driven by data, one that manages and simplifies the complexity of medical claim costs. It is through analyzing millions of data points that we enable employers to realize and fuel cost-saving solutions. Valence experts come prepared from day one, targeting the fraction of claims that will drive the majority of health plan costs. That is how our team lives the Valence promise, engaging early and often for smarter, better, faster healthcare.
What do you want to accomplish in your career, Bobby? Let's look forward a little bit. Like what being a consultant and doing what you do, what's important to you to look back on?
Through my interview process with Hotchkiss, they kind of asked me the same thing. I want to take care of people. I want to help people. And so growing a book of business where we're all sitting down, we're having conversations on how we help people. That's what I'm passionate about. That's what I want to do. And I'm going to be doing this for the next 30 years, right? And so gradually over time, working with more and more employers that have the same common goal to take care and do better for their employees, and not taking the approach of, well, let's just buy insurance every 12 months. Let's not sit around the table, but let's really put a strategic plan together and manage our overall costs, because this is a top 5 line item on businesses' P&Ls. And so sitting back and taking a reactive approach just doesn't make sense.
Not in today's marketplace, man. I don't think you can get away with that anymore. And I think even you talked about your family and your 2 kiddos, right? Like there's nothing wrong with having success and having financial success commensurate with the impact that you have. And I think there's also a kind of a right way to go about things, and you're marrying those 2 things together. And I think the better you get at doing what you do for employers, obviously the financial component will follow, and it will enable a lot of other things, not only in your life, but your community, Hotchkiss at large, et cetera, et cetera. And so I love that we can get those 2 things again in alignment. What do you think is going to happen though, Bobby, big picture in healthcare? And I know this is a really ambiguous, lofty question, but having sat where you sat now for 5 or 6 years in your career, what are you envisioning the next couple of years are going to look like?
There's no telling. It kind of depends on where the next vision of the administration goes and the changes that they enact. I think healthcare kind of reinvents itself every 5 to 10 years, 5 to 7 years. So just being proactive and understanding what is out in the market and what you can do and how you can take care of these employers. I don't know. I don't think we ever get to a single payer
I don't think so either.
But I think the proliferation and the things that you can do in a self-funded environment really, do we ever overthrow 70 or 90% market share from the BUCAs? Probably not. But in the pockets where we can impact change, I think that's
well, I'd say there's some cracks in the armor right now. If you look, I think Benefits Pro released an article recently. I forgot where the publication was that was under that, but they had an announcement about statistics from the fully insured and self-funded market share, and fully insured market share shrunk by a couple percentage points in 2024, and that means the self-insured market obviously grew relative to that. And so, are we at the peak right now, and are we going to see it crest a little bit and have more market share from self-insurance? I hope so. But you're right. I don't believe it'll ever be the dominant kind of structure for most businesses outside of those jumbos. And so the best that we can do, right, is tell a better story to as many employers as possible and change it one business at a time. And my hope is that's going to have aggregate impact for the industry at large. So why don't we do this, Bobby? One more question before we jump, man. Closing thoughts for the folks that have listened to the episode, summary, an idea, whatever you want to leave them with. The floor is yours.
Yeah. I think there are great things coming for employers. I think the awareness, the transparency that has taken effect, and our ability to pull data to get to the early intervention, to create change before the large claims happen. I think that's the most important part that we can do. And just so staying ahead of that, working with a consultant who is committed to that, to benefit your health plan. I think Hotchkiss does a really good job of putting the tools, the leadership that we have in the organization is forward thinking. They're always thinking, how can we do more for our clients? How can we help them manage their health plan better? I think, just being open to those conversations as an employer, instead of just the old status quo of where we are is where we are.
Yeah.
I think
I couldn't agree more. And I think it's an evergreen process too, man. I mean, it's what you do today won't be what you do next year. Mm-hmm. And the advice always has to evolve and stay out in front of the demands of employers. So I just commend you for doing what you do. And obviously, again, big fan of Hotchkiss as well. And so thanks for sitting down with me, Bobby. I appreciate it.
Appreciate your time very much.